flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Borowski,
Here.
Reddick, McLeod, Vogel,
Here.
Montgomery.
Here.
All right, can we get, has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Do we have any changes?
Just on the very last page,
Tim contacted me
all
about,
set with that? Okay. So I'll move that we approve the minutes
I'll
as
second
corrected.
it. Yeah, I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So is there anyone in the public who'd like to comment on anything unrelated to the items on the agenda?
I don't have an agenda.
There's
So
agendas
we're on
on the table.
your agenda item.
All right, so with that being said, we'll move on to the public hearing. As we move into the public hearing section of this meeting, we ask that you please be respectful of time, limiting your comments to 5 minutes apiece. Also, please wait to be acknowledged by the chair, which would be me. Go to the podium right up here and state your name and your residence location and address, and your comments up here to the board to us. So who would like to start?
I can start with a staff overview of the project if you want.
Okay.
All right. The applicant is applying for a site plan review of a new multifamily residential structure at the addresses of 624 and 630 South Michigan Avenue. The property is currently zoned R3. The proposed project will tear down the existing structure on the site and build a new multifamily residential structure. The new structure will be 3 stories high and have 8 units. Each unit will contain 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a kitchen, living area, and laundry facilities. These 2 properties are a part of the development, and they are located just to the north of Ferris's campus and a half block to the east of State Street. The property is 0.344 acres in size, providing a large lot in the existing residential neighborhood. The property is closest to Cedar Street and Ferris is currently vacant, while the other property currently contains an established residential structure. The residential structure in the past has been used for many years as a single-family house until March of 2023, when it was bought and used for multifamily residential uses. The property went through a variance in March of 2024 to allow the existing structure to be used for more than 4 unrelated occupants and was granted a maximum of 7 occupants. The applicant also recently applied for a variance to allow an additional unit on the property within the project, but was denied as the applicant did not meet the standards for variance approval. Staff has provided you in your staff report a bunch of information about our review, and also you have before you, because it wasn't included in your packets originally emailed to you, a review by our engineers, or by our engineering public works department, their review of the site plan for you to look over. Staff recommendation, staff's biggest concern is the scale of the structure compared to the surrounding residential properties. The applicant has made attempts to decrease that impact and add some character to the structure with some architectural design changes. With that, for the board's consideration, staff recommends approval of the site plan for the multifamily residential structure at 624 Michigan Avenue, as it meets the criteria found in section 9.6 of the zoning ordinance with the recommended conditions. If the board chooses to approve the site plan, staff would recommend the following conditions prior to final approval. either to be reviewed by staff or to come back to planning commission, and any other the board feels is appropriate. A lighting plan to be provided which meets the ordinance. Bicycle parking to be provided on site that meets the standards of section 5.72. Landscaping needs to be provided on the south side of the parking lot between Cedar Street and the parking lot. The driveway and parking areas are required to be 5 feet from all property lines. The dumpster location on the parking lot is only a foot off the property line, and the driveway up to the dumpster area also does not meet that setback requirement. Add landscaping along the north side of the structure to soften the impact of the building on the neighboring property owner. Plan A3, which is one of the sheets you received of the architectural drawings, need to show the removal of a residential unit and the addition of the workout facility and office area. Provide a sidewalk on the north side of the structure along Cedar. And if the parking lot is not curbed, bumper stops need to be added to the parking lot. Other considerations the board may want to take into effect are: where are the mechanics, mainly air conditioning, going to be located? Will they be hidden from view? And is there a need for a fence between the parking lot and the alley? Landscaping is currently provided there. And does moving the driveway further down the alley create a better traffic situation, as it could decrease impact on the neighbors across of the alley? Does the board have any questions for me?
One question I had was on the driveway change. Public safety indicated it was fine where it was located. Am I correct with that?
Public safety reviewed the plans, and we didn't discuss changing the location in the alley. We discussed whether having the driveway off the alley, Cedar Street or Michigan, would be the best. And public safety felt traffic-wise the alley would provide the best. But we didn't discuss which portion of the alley.
All right, who'd like to go first?
The applicant.
Okay. All right, would the applicant like to speak?
Sure. Thank you. Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I really just have a statement to read, and then obviously if you guys have any questions at the end of that, I'll be more than happy to ask those. My name is Ward Bell. I live in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. I'm proud to say that I'm a graduate of Ferris State University, class of 2001, and even prouder that my daughter recently graduated from Ferris's nursing program. I'm here tonight to respectfully request your approval of the site plan for my proposed multifamily development at 624 and 630 South Michigan Avenue. The project includes 8 residential units, each with 4 bedrooms, for a total of 32 bedrooms. Let me begin by stating this project is compliant with the city's zoning ordinance. It is a permitted use in the R3 zoning district, and we are not requesting any variances at this time. And as Michelle indicated, that we came to the variance application and we're denied. We meet or exceed all applicable standards, including setbacks, building height, unit size, lot coverage, parking, landscaping, and stormwater management. This is exactly the kind of development that the zoning ordinance anticipates and permits. Beyond legal compliance, this project aligns with the city's master plan. As noted in your planning documents and echoed in Director Michelle Stenger's staff report, this area is identified as appropriate for targeted residential intensification near Ferris State University. The master plan promotes increased density around campus, specifically to preserve the character of lower density neighborhoods elsewhere. This project is not an outlier. Just across the street, the Pike House at 607 South Michigan is a 3-story building with similar scale and density. At 113 Chestnut, you'll also find a comparable project with the similar lot coverage. The South Michigan Avenue corridor also already includes a blend of single-family duplex and multifamily properties and other mixed uses such as the library down the street. Our proposal is consistent with the established pattern. That said, I understand this block carries deep personal significance for many long-time residents. I've heard stories of families raised here, friendships formed, and a certain rhythm of life along Michigan Avenue. I deeply respect that history, and I also recognize that even thoughtful, lawful change can be hard to accept. Some have suggested the house should be preserved or redeveloped for affordable or workforce housing. Without significant financial support from the state, federally, county, or city sources, that's just not economically feasible. And even if I chose not to redevelop it, future owner would face similar or same constraints. The existing home is in decline. It needs major repairs. The windows are outdated and inefficient. There's no central air. The bathrooms are deteriorating. The floors are uneven. The garage has persistent water issues, and the sun porch is in need of some repair. This project is not exploiting a loophole. It is not a workaround. It is not a direct or intended result. It is the direct and intended result of the city's zoning ordinance and master plan, developed through years of public input, professional guidance, and thoughtful policy. I've heard the concern it may be legal, but it's just not right. But in a democratic community, zoning and planning documents are precisely how we define what is right. Based on open meetings, public engagement, and long-term goals, that's how those policies are established. I also want to be clear up one misconception that came up during the variance application. While this project is well suited for Ferris students, it is not limited to them. These are high-quality, fully code-compliant apartments that could just as easily accommodate families and young professionals. It is flexible, multi-tenant residential property, just like many others permitted in the R3 zoning across Big Rapids. This is not about maximizing the number of units. In fact, under a modern zoning approach, which was demonstrated in the variance application meeting, such as, and taking on a modern zoning approach, such as floor area ratio, we could use the same square footage that's in the current building and create 17 smaller units, totaling 28 bedrooms. We've chosen this mix of 8 four-bedroom units because it meets the market needs and stays within the site's physical and legal constraints. I want to be clear, I hear the neighbors and I understand their concerns, and I'm committed to being a responsible partner. That's why I'm willing to work with the city staff and this commission to implement reasonable refinements in response to their comments. But I am not seeking to reduce the project's core scale or programming. The 8 units and 32 bedrooms are consistent with the zoning regulations and the city's stated policies and goals. Commissioners, I recognize this is a sensitive subject. It's not easy to see something familiar give way to something new, but this project is legal, it's thoughtful, it reflects the vision of the master plan and needs of the community. You have 3 options tonight: to approve, deny, or to approve with conditions. The staff recommends approval with conditions, and I fully support that recommendation. So tonight I respectfully ask for your vote of support, not just because this project meets every technical requirement, but because it invests in the Big Rapids future, supports its university, and enhances the established neighborhood in a responsible and sustainable way. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I remain committed to working with the neighbors, city staff, and commission to deliver a project we can all be proud of. That's it.
You guys got
Thank
any
you.
questions?
Not now.
Okay.
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay.
All right. Now we'll let the opposition speak. For the public.
Anyone else in-
Or is there anybody else in favor first? All right, so the opposition can try to keep it to 5 minutes, and we'll try to get through everybody.
My name is Robert Stanton. I live at 612 South Michigan Avenue. The legal description for our property is lots 13 and 14 of Block 53 of Warren and Ives' original plat of the city of Big Rapids. I live there with my wife. We are now in our 40th year of owning and occupying that home as a single-family residence. We raised our children there, and we've been residents of Big Rapids for
50.
over 50 years. We purchased our home from Gene Kelly on May 1 of 1986. Jean Kelly owned it with her husband, who predeceased. His name was Milton Kelly. Milton Kelly was a local attorney and also taught law at Ferris. They occupied the house as a single-family residence. Directly to the west of and across the alley from the project site is the home of the Larsons. They bought their house from the Ludwigs, who bought the house from the White family in 1986. That house has been occupied as a single-family residence as long as we have occupied our house, i.e. 40 years in single-family residence. And I believe it was a single-family residence before even the Ludwigs bought, because it was owned by the White family. And Doc White was a renowned physician in town, and they would live in their house in town in the summer and move out to a farm near Newaygo County line in the winter, or in the summer rather. It has been a single-family residential use. Across Michigan Avenue to the east is the Jeff Joseph House. That house also has been owned and occupied as a single-family residence as long as I have been at our current location. All those residences look like a single-family residence. Their visual appearance is as a single-family residence. And even more so, across Cedar Street from the project, on the Ferris campus, is what Ferris calls the McKessie House. I knew it as the Bob and Libby Miles house. And Bob Miles was a prominent judge and attorney in town for many years, and they occupied it as a single-family residence. Since Ferris has bought it, they use it now as the office for the vice president and general counsel of the university. As far as I can tell, they've only made one change on the exterior of the house to change from what the Miles family had, and that is the installation of a handicap access ramp into the front door. Quite frankly, between you and me, I don't think I've ever seen anybody walk in and out of the door of that house, that office building. I've never been in it. I've never seen anybody. There must be a door in the back, because I've never seen anybody use that building. Certainly they're not having late night parties and many people hanging around, that's for sure. I'm concerned about this use of the term multifamily, because I believe that the architecture of this project is not designed for family living. And the amount of family living that will be there, if we could be guaranteed that all the occupants in each one of the units was a family unit, it would be a much easier sell for us, perhaps. But I don't think that's even conceivable. And excuse me, I too have read the master plan. What I read in the master plan, we are medium density residential. Now, what are the important concepts? Attractive and durable building materials and architecture should enhance the existing neighborhood character. Our neighborhood character is single-family residential use. There would be no enhancement of the character of our neighborhood by the construction of the building as contemplated. Furthermore, in the master plan, it says factors to consider. And this is the number one point, bullet point. This is not intended for multi-story, high-density residential developments that are more typical of multi-building apartment complexes. This thing looks like it ought to be out with the apartment complexes. That's exactly what the factor to consider is. I will conclude my remarks. I cannot understand how a 3-story building designed to be occupied by up to 32 unrelated persons, which is owned by someone who lives 150, 200 miles away. It can't possibly be an enhancement to our neighborhood community. I ask that you deny the application for a building permit or whatever action you need to take to stop this action. Thank you.
Is it all right if I sit here to talk?
Yeah, we have the printed version as well, right?
Yeah,
they
have others.
I'm Connie Larson, and this is my husband Bill. We live at 123 Cedar Street. That's the property west of 624 and 630 Michigan. We own a double lot running parallel to this property with the alley between us. I am here to ask the board to deny the site plan being presented tonight. I'm asking this board to allow our residential neighborhood to stay residential and not allow a housing development to be built. I hear multifamily units are being promoted, but there would be no reason for a family-friendly housing unit to be built near Ferris unless the real objective is student housing and not family housing. I feel we have enough student housing on Michigan Avenue that is already convenient for students and along the side streets. More housing isn't really what is needed here. Improvements on the current rentals for students need to be improved, and that is the real issue in our city. This development does not fit in with the 600 block and is not needed or necessary. The 600 block of Michigan Avenue is a unique neighborhood. It has been made up of mostly single-family homes. It may be zoned R3, but the homes have been here for 90 and 95 years. This side of the block has always been single-family homes until Mr. Bell purchased the property at 624 and converted it into a rental for his daughter. Across the street, we have the fraternity house, a rental house, and a residential home on the corner. Both the rentals on that side have conformed to the neighborhood by remaining houses with limited occupancy. We have a nice mix of housing on our block. I reviewed the 2024 master plan. What does medium density residential mean? The desired land use is single family attached, single family detached, duplexes, multiplexes, and mixed use. What I didn't see was any references to more student housing. There doesn't seem to be a clear number of how many housing units of these desired land uses make up medium density in a neighborhood. What I see on Michigan Avenue, south from the 300, 400, 500, and 600 blocks is that we already have approximately 40 rentals with 7 single-family homes and the newer 4 units for 16 occupants just off Michigan on Chestnut. It seems to me that we already have met or exceeded the desired land use for medium density in our neighborhood without the proposed development. The projections from 2020 to 2050 in this master plan show the population continues to decline, and it is projected to continue to decline or have a downward trend in the city due to a downward trend of enrollment at Ferris. The housing by occupancy stated that 81% of housing units in the city were occupied with 19% vacant. Ferris is building a new dorm at the end of their football field, which will give the students the best convenience of walking to and from classes. With that and the 19% vacant units, shouldn't that be enough? I feel we don't need new housing developments for students, and that's what this is really about, the convenience of walking to classes. Instead of building more housing, maybe someone should look at replacing some of the rentals on the 400 and 500 blocks where this development would have been more suited to the current use. I see flaws with the site plan. 3 stories, 32 occupants, 36 parking spaces. There were multiple things Mr. Bell could have done that would have left this home standing and not have been so intrusive, but he chose not to. The plans show the driveway entry and access coming off the alley across from my house. This is a terrible idea. I oppose the driveway coming off the alley anywhere. This alley has a 20-foot right-of-way and is not wide enough for two-way traffic. The waste management trucks will have difficulty entering their parking lot from the alley, as they will need to make a turn, unlike going straight down the alley as they do now. I'm sure my driveway will suffer damage eventually from the weight of those trucks going in and getting back out into the alley. I can't even imagine how fire trucks are going in and getting back out into the fire trucks would gain access without coming onto my property. And what about plowing? They plow away from my driveway, which means they will be plowing into theirs. The increased traffic on that alley will cause more congestion to the already congested area at Cedar Street, and this is the only access I have to my property. Plus, the open driveway facing my home will bring garbage and debris onto my property like we get from the gas station next door, and the students will use my yard as a shortcut by cutting through the parking lot instead of using the sidewalks. And I'm sure parties will be happening in that lot also that I don't care to see. The best entry and exit would have been coming off in Michigan Avenue, where the view for entering and exiting would be clear, as there is no parking allowed on that side of Michigan already. Secondly would have been Cedar Street. If we can't stop this project, the least you could do is help keep my privacy less invaded and less congested by moving the entrance off the alley with nothing less than a high security fence along their property line all the way down the alley side, so the students won't be able to take the shortcut onto my property. Trees and shrubs are not going to get it for me. They'll just walk through them. A sidewalk on Cedar Street is being discussed. What does that mean for me, since we are the only other property owners on Cedar? Will the sidewalk be stopping at the alley? As I don't see why I should have to pay an assessment fee for something that this project is causing to be needed that wasn't in the past. I have landscaping that would be destroyed if a sidewalk were installed on my property. Where will the runoff water go from the parking lot? I know the Chestnut 4 unit has a spillway for just 16 occupants, and this one has 32. The master plan has the soils as fine mix, but I can tell you it's clay in a lot of it, which makes for poor drainage. The elements of this site plan are not harmoniously and efficiently organized in relation to the character of adjoining properties or with the type and size of the building. This is a single-family home residential neighborhood. A 3-story housing unit is a massive change in use and a massive change to its neighbors. The development and the activities that will come with it will affect adjoining residents and our home values. This block is a family-friendly neighborhood with some of the more beautiful homes in our city on it, and 624 is one of them. I don't think anyone working on the master plan had it in mind to destroy beautiful homes, but I do think they would think replacing current rental units in need of better living standard is what they were hoping for. Your job is a hard one tonight. The decisions you make this evening will affect the rest of our lives and our neighbors' lives. There is no win here, and you as a board have to decide if this is the time and place for such a development. Yes, it may be R3, but does it meet what is and always has been on this block for 95 years, single-family homes? You must decide what we, the residents on this block, have to live with and deal with if this is approved while the developer doesn't. This development does not belong on the 600 block of Michigan Avenue. I'm asking you to vote to deny this plan. I'm asking you to think about how you would feel if this were being proposed next to your residential home. You have the authority and the ability to deny this proposal, and I'm asking you to please do that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hello, my name is Dr. Margaret Gingrich, and I am owner of Gingrich Dental that is located at 106 Chestnut. So my father bought the property originally that was going to be repossessed from the McGinnis house back in 1983 and converted it to a dental office, which we had to go through the zoning commission. He was Mr. Stanton was talking about all of the things that had to go through in order to change that over to a business at the time. we were required to put up a privacy fence that used to go in between Subway and my place. We were also required to plant trees that went by the alleyway and prevented any of the housing to see any of our parking lot at the time. We were also required to put in an entrance and an egress that was not related to the alleyway. And we were told that the alleyway at the time was an emergency exit only, and we had to have a sign that was placed on there that said emergency exit only, because the traffic that we were bringing in 1983 would be cumbersome to the families that were living on that street. Since I have owned this business, which I took ownership of the full business I came in 2004, and we added on an addition. We had to put in a drainage system to make sure, because it's a Georgia blue clay and the water does not go into the ground. We had to come up with that. And so if you come into our place and you see our parking lot, we have an extra drainage system. And we did add on to our building because it was made for two dentists at the time. What Mrs. Larson was talking about, we had students that would continue to climb over our privacy fence. They busted down the fence, and when we came and asked if we had to rebuild that, they said that at the time that we did not need to do that. We have a significant issue with students walking across our lot. We've had students fall and hurt themselves because they don't realize that the drain is located there. The alleyway has the trees that were put up because the garbage was so cumbersome between Subway and the gas station. They came through and they ended up taking that out. And that's been an issue, but the actual alleyway has broken down significantly. And we have to have trucks come down quite frequently to make sure that that cars can actually drive over that. Mrs. Jacobson used to put 2x4s out to prevent people from driving down the alleyway and driving too fast. We have an issue with students that park in our parking lot, and I came to ask even about putting on more parking spaces, and I was told I could only put on 3 more parking spaces because it was unsightly and it was too much. So some of the other issues that I have with this site plan is that the neighborhood, we were told when we moved in, we were not allowed to add on stories-wise because it was they wanted it to still have that feel of the neighborhood. So we can only have 2 stories. The ingress and egress on the alleyway is not going to be for just 32 people. You forget that a lot of these people cannot afford the housing, and so many of them have boyfriends or girlfriends that live in there. So it's not just, originally in your zoning thing that you sent, it's at 36 bedrooms, but you're going to have probably close to 50. You also have to have handicapped, besides the bicycle and all of that other stuff. So are you planning on having the alleyway paved, and whose responsibility is that going to be to pay for that? Is one of my questions for you. It is, I do agree, it's going to change the entire composition of the area, but the traffic pattern. Are you going to have to put in another stoplight? Because if they're going past my place, either to Chestnut Street or over, there's been a ton of accidents in those areas. So is another traffic light going to need to be put on there for State Street because people want to make left-hand turns and it causes a significant issue? I have also talked with Alan Johns, that is owner of the University Properties, Winter Creek Apartments, and student housing that is on Gilbert Drive, that is south of town. He said he has had 15 to 20% free spaces all year long. And I do know that the housing development that's right across from my office had a for rent sign most of the year. So they are not filling these places. And so I looked up on the website, And in the last decade, we have continued to lose students. We had in 2015 over 10,000 students, and most recently in 2023, we only had 7,122 enrolled students. Last year, we went up a whole 10 students, so we had 7,132. Currently, for the spring enrollment for 2025, there's only 6,595. Ferris is also changing over that a lot of students are not actually staying on campus. They are doing e-learning, and they are not going to be needing those rooms. And where are we going to have parking? If there is extra parking that is needed, my parking lot, I can't even house all of the patients that I have. I can't be having them come over and use my parking lot. I'm also concerned about the damage that could be caused and just to my facility. I have had issues with the frat house that was across the way that has since been torn down. They would have parties and I would have to go over there and have them come over and pick up the beer cans, the alcohol, the garbage that was there. What is going to happen with a 32-person apartment coming over there? So, and then also for local property management, he says he's from Detroit. Who is going to be managing this? And is the city going to require that a manager is on staff that we are going to have access to with the phone number that we can call if we are having issues? And who is going to be limiting the people that are staying there so we are not having issues with parking all along the actual streets? So those are just a few of my questions. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Anybody else?
Well, is it okay if I wear my ball cap?
That's what.
Okay, I have a head wound and somewhat unsightly. My name's Randy Hansen. I live at 606 South Michigan, or 2 doors down from this proposed project. My wife and I have lived there 10.5 years. When we moved here, this was the only house we really looked at. We were driving around town, saw it for sale, decided to look at it, and voila, it just kind of drew us to it. And we really enjoyed living there ever since. What helped draw us to this location not only was the house, but the entire block. With only 3 residences and large lots, it just was a picturesque area. We've had many people, friends, just people we've been talking to, alumni from the Pikes across the street, remark what a beautiful block it is. Many have said it's the most beautiful block in town with the older homes and how well they're kept. Fast forward to today. My wife and I are certainly opposed to this project from the get-go. We currently have a nice view to the south towards where this project would be from our porch and from our living room. This view would certainly be hindered by a 3-story building built much closer to the sidewalk. Another concern is the increase in the noise that this would create. I mean, right now there were 7 soccer girls living there, and yeah, they whoop it up a little bit now and then. But again, this is a college town. We understand that, and they've always been very, very good neighbors to us. But the addition of up to 32 more, or 32 students, plus whatever guests they have, would obviously create more of a noise issue. Having said that, not to mention the increase in foot traffic in the wee hours of the morning coming from town, going past our house, that is a concern as well. Another concern is that, as I believe you've already heard, is there even a need for more student housing near campus? I walk campus and the surrounding area quite regularly, and I've seen some of the rentals are completely empty in the last semester. And the rentals that are occupied, are they occupied at capacity? Who knows? So there is a decline. And I've also talked to several students who live farther away from campus. And the reason they do that is not because of a lack of housing near campus, it's because it's cheaper. By obviously a substantial amount that they can afford to live, they live off campus, but can afford to drive to campus and park, etc. And to echo Ms. Gingrich, the alley issue, it's tolerable now. I mean, there's vehicular traffic, it's an alley. And there's a certain amount of dust, but with 32 extra vehicles using that alley, that dust problem is going to be substantially higher. And of course, the answer to that would be, hey, let's pave the alley. Well, that'd take care of the dust. But being a retired traffic officer, I've seen several instances where a gravel road was paved because the people along that road didn't like the dust. So the road gets paved, the very first call you get. Now they're speeding. So, and it would be very hard to police that in an alley. I mean, it's a very short distance, but it would just be a hard enforcement area right there. So, I guess in closing, this project to me would negatively change the look of the nicest block on Michigan Avenue. And if there is a need for student housing, which I questioned, there are other sites that would be much more suitable for it. And I guess the last thing I'm really concerned with is the negative that would devalue my residence, having a huge apartment building 2 doors down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I'll make this short because a lot of my remarks and comments support what you've already heard. Pardon me? My name is Ann Stanton. I live at 612 South Michigan. I've lived there for 40 years. I have some short-term concerns about the demolition of the Jacobs home and garage that sit on that proposed site. We're going to have dust, we're going to have noise, dirt, lights, cars, trucks of all various sizes and weights going up and down that alley, the gravel from which falls right into my driveway when any large vehicle uses that alley. Then we get to the construction of this oversized 3-story building into our residential neighborhood. And what do we get? We get more dirt, dust, noise, lights, cars, and trucks. My husband and I have lived there, as I said, for 40 years in what I would describe as a historic home. It is over 100 years old. We have worked hard to maintain it in a historic city block. We fear losing our neighbors once this out-of-place building is plunked down among us. Will other unhistoric structures follow this one? We hope you will decide to keep some of Big Rapids' history safe and a family neighborhood intact by denying this construction at this location. Thank you.
Anybody else?
My name is Lynn Anderson. I live at 319 South Michigan. And anyway, that neighborhood is 4 blocks long, if you can understand that, and it contains 42 properties, of which are, our block, 4 are owner occupied. Now, we do a lot of walking, I do, and you go to the top of the hill where the Stantons live, and it's beautiful. You have a chance to see all everything is paved and looks so nice, and even the fraternity house looks very good too. But the fellow on the corner, Mr. Well, anyway, he does a very nice job of keeping it up. Anyway, this business is too big, too much, too everything for that particular lot, and I don't understand how he can do it. When I was on as a commissioner, we talked about having things come into the building eventually, and we decided that, all of us decided that the 2 middle blocks were the places that we'd have these, and we would keep the everything on the ends in the same, because it gave the neighborhood a family-oriented kind of a feel. We are family-oriented. There's 4 of us on our block that are owner-occupied. We recently had a couple with 2 small children. They bought the Hoganson's house, and they are going to live there, and they're very happy with it. If you could have just gotten more people to buy for these particular lots, they don't have everything like that. I'm sorry that I do appreciate your house.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name's Bill Larson. I live at 123 Cedar Street. I did not have a lot of information written down, but as Mr. Bell said, he was talking about a 3-story building. Well, tonight I looked up the Pike House there. It is a 3-story, but it was built in 1920 as a single-family dwelling. So over the years, it has become, fraternities and stuff like that. But it is a nice-looking house. And the alleyway, it is a mess. Right now, that alleyway, I've been trying to have the city, my garage is almost 8 inches lower than the alley. I can't keep the water out of my garage. And to have a driveway put there, the only feasible place is off of Michigan. Because Cedar Street in the wintertime, there's a little spring down the end there. I don't know how many cars I've had to push out of there because they're trying to turn around to get that parking place out front. So you're gonna have that traffic jam there, and it's ridiculous. So it needs to come off Michigan where there's no parking up there. And like everybody says here, that 600 block is about the only historical dwelling place on Michigan Avenue. Why would the Big Rapids Commissions destroy a historical monument like that? I mean, people come from Fairhook and they look at these houses. They've spent a lot of money. They've upkept them. And to put a 32 unit there, it's ridiculous. And we know it's not a family dwelling. It's gonna be students. Why would a family wanna live right next to Ferris campus? So, Mr. Bell, you're talking family dwelling, but that's not your agenda. That's just not it. We know where you're going with this, so. I hope you vote it down. Thank you for your time.
Anybody else from the public against it? No? Okay. Now that the board has heard from both sides of the public, we're gonna close the public portion.
Maybe rebuttal, if he wants to have any rebuttal, the applicant.
Yeah, yes.
Okay. Would you like a rebuttal?
Sure, I'll just say a couple comments. I'd just like to reemphasize that a lot of the opposition I'm hearing is due to the fact that this block should have never been zoned R3. At the end of the day, this project is by right. It's not a PUD, and I'm doing everything that's in compliance with the current zoning ordinance. There was a couple comments made about stormwater management. My team has worked with your city engineers to figure out how the storm detention, the storm runoff, all that is going to be handled. There was some discussion about barrier-free parking spots. Barrier-free parking spots will also be provided. I'm open to having discussions about where the driveway could be. I'm open to having discussions about, barriers, fences, landscaping, things of that nature. All those things that come in compliance to try and be a good partner. But at the end of the day, Big Rapids, the city of Big Rapids, made this entire block R3. And I'm just trying to comply with what the city of Big Rapids has put in its zoning ordinance. So, that's it. Thank you.
Good now. Okay, now with that being said, we'll go ahead and close the public portion, and move into discussion. This allows us as a board to have discussion over, what we heard and, ask questions, but it's closed for public comment from here on out. Right? Okay.
Good job.
Alright. Would anybody like to start?
Sorry. Microphone to your face. Don't back away. They do that.
So, from what I hear, the real issue, which he just laid out again, is the fact that this is all zoned R3. I don't know how long it has been zoned R3. I don't think this came from a variance or zoning changes recently. It's been R3 for a long time.
Comment on that. I looked back, and I didn't go all the way back to the beginning of zoning in Big Rapids, but I looked back to the 1960s, and at that time it was on R3.
Okay.
I guess I see a lot of the issue bringing up too about the driveway and using the alleyway. And I know I live on an alleyway as well, and just with normal traffic, it doesn't take long before it gets pitted, and during the winter, it's even worse. I don't like seeing it use the alleyway there either, just because of that much traffic going through there.
What are the alternatives to the drive? It comes off Cedar? Is that the only alternative?
With how the site plan is laid out, the only alternative, how it's currently drawn, would be to have it off of Cedar. If you would like it off of Michigan, it would require some changes to the site plan, some more major changes to the site plan.
Well, that seems to be one issue that resonates with me, is that change onto Michigan. Michelle, I see we have the engineering from DPW. The chief talked about driveway, fire marshal, zoning administrator. Were there any other issues that came up from discussions with other departments that we wouldn't know about?
I have not heard from the fire marshal, so I'm assuming that they didn't have concerns. Usually they're pretty good about getting back to me if there's any issues. And then they also review it at building plan time, so they would, they would take a full set of prints and review it at that time to make sure it meets fire code. So they kind of just do a preliminary review of site plan, and I hadn't heard from them. DPW's comments you have before you, they did have some comments, so if, I would make sure to include those in any conditions if you move that direction, just so that they can get the responses they need at, and if there's any future review. Other than that, I had not heard from any other department. I did have comments from 2 people who were not able to attend the meeting. If you'd like me to go over those phone calls and email. One email you have before you, it's from Matt Wellnitz. And he said, I am opposed to the proposed development of the single-family residence at 624 South Michigan. A 3-story apartment building is out of place compared to the other residential houses in the area. Even the frat house across the street, sort of. 8 apartments, each with 4 bedrooms. That makes 32 total residents in the new building. Now let's suppose each resident drives a car. I don't see how that lot with the building can hold 32 cars. The location seems to me like more student housing. That may be enough to drive single families in the area to move outside the city limits with the loss of income tax revenue. I'm sure there's a lot of history in that house, and it would be a shame to destroy a part of Big Rapids history. I'm curious, who is the person / group wanting to build the apartment house? Thank you for your time. And then the other one isn't quite as laid out. It was a phone call today that I had with Jane Johansson, who lives not directly in the neighborhood, but close to the neighborhood. She understands that it's a permitted use by right, but she feels like that the size of the building is too high. 2 floors instead of 3, she thinks would be more reasonable. The 3rd story allows for overlooking into the neighbor's property more than a 2-story would. She has had that experience herself. She also believes that the architecture doesn't fit the character of the adjoining property, and she doesn't believe Ferris should be considered in that consideration because Ferris is exempt from being regulated by our zoning ordinance, so they kind of have a free hand to do what they please as they don't have to follow our zoning. She feels like it is more industrial versus single-family home. She also referenced section 9.62 for the review. She doesn't feel the traffic is a concern, or she does feel the traffic is a concern, sorry. That it's tearing down a beautiful home and that there doesn't need to be more student housing. Those were the only 2 outside of the department comments that we've received.
Is all residential use housing, with the exception of a slated out area of the city, is there anything that defines single family from student? And I keep hearing the argument come up about these are going to be student units.
So
and that doesn't surprise me. I live right next to the college.
So we define families in our ordinance. If you look at section 2, which is our definition section, we define families. One family is one or more persons related by blood, marriage, adoption, or guardianship living in a single housekeeping unit. We also define a family of functional, which is similar to a single family, one family. A group of no more than 4 people plus their offspring having a relationship which is functionally equivalent to a family. The relationship must be of a permanent or distinct character with a demonstrable and recognizable bond characteristic of a cohesive unit. Functional families does not include any society, club, fraternity, sorority, registered student association, organization, association, lodge, organization, or a group of students or other individuals whereas in common living arrangements or basis of this establishment of the housekeeping unit is temporary. So those are our single family units. And then we also define it under dwellings, kind of. A single family dwelling is a building containing no more than one dwelling unit designed for residential use complying with the standards of section 4.125. Two-family dwelling is a building containing not more than 2 separate dwelling units designed for residential use. And a multi-family dwelling is a building containing 3 or more dwelling units designed for residential use.
Do you have numbers on the difference between medium density versus high density?
The master plan does not get into the specifics of the difference between medium and high density that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I printed off the medium density part and I don't see anywhere where it says like an amount, like a number of families.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what's concerning to me is that I don't see how do we say 32 rooms is medium or high density. Like, that's kind of the part that I'm stuck on, is for that area, if this was like a 20 unit or 20 room, you know, would that be something like an easier pill to swallow because it's going in, you know, a mixed use, you know, medium density neighborhood versus a 36 or a 32 unit, like, or a 32 room.
Right, I think the reasoning, the direction for that isn't in the master plan is usually master plans don't get to that level of specificity. In their descriptions, you're supposed to use, you know, some of the factors that are listed to consider it, and that specification comes in with your zoning.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I guess because my concern is, and unless I'm not understanding it correctly, with 32 rooms, like what's the occupancy standard for one room? 2 people? So are we looking at 64 people possibly?
So the building code regulates occupant standards.
Which I thought was 2.
We don't enforce the
Gotcha,
building code,
okay.
so I don't know it well enough to speak to it. It would make sense, but I don't.
I know 2 is what HUD goes by, but that's not. Don't go, yeah. So, I mean, that's a concern with me, is we're talking a potential of, and if it truly is family housing, and it's 4 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, that could be 2 kids per room, and I see that as high density. That's what I'm kind of confused about, or it's what concerns me when I'm looking at it. I don't know if you guys. It's for medium density, but I don't really know where we would draw that line between medium and high density for the area.
Chair, can I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I just want to give my 2 cents. So I've been listening to everybody and making a whole bunch of notes for myself, okay? It's possible that we may not have necessarily a lot of leeway here if it's zoned appropriate. So I'm just gonna tell you how I feel about it as a commissioner. First of all, I think it's too congested to have that there. I think it's, for the amount of space you need for traffic flow, for people to feel comfortable walking their kids, little kids on bikes, and we've got all these people coming in and out. It changes the dynamic of a family residential area for me. I know the space very well, and it definitely has its own feel. Even with a fraternity house across the street, it has its own very comforting feel. It seems like a safe neighborhood. It feels like a family-oriented neighborhood. It feels like people who live in those homes are connected and they care about each other. It disrupts what I believe is perfect right now. Mr. Ward, I believe that there are other places where we could use something like this. There's a street called Warren that has a lot of dilapidated looking rentals that I believe are for sale or are completely abandoned. It's a eyesore. A lot of the section closest to campus, which is where you want to be, and it could use a lot of love. I know that most people in town think of Michigan Avenue stopping at Cedar Street and then campus begins. I don't have a problem with students in homes that are rentals, but I don't feel, and I know there's other ones, there's one across from Dr. Margaret. There's a small apartment type complex there. It seems to be very kind of tucked in its position, and it's not very obstructive to when I drive by it. I almost don't even notice it. Where you want to be is an eyesore, to say the least. I do think we have plenty of student housing in Big Rapids. I may be in the solo stance there, but we have a lot of really wonderful places that have been built in Big Rapids. We have such great areas that are made for students, and there's plenty of them. If this were for families and it was a smaller footprint as far as your height, if you were a single level for families, I don't think people would have as much trouble because they know those people are going to probably have porches that are polite with flowers and kids running around the block, which is what they would typically like. I do think that the Pike House has been extremely responsible with its neighbors. I think it's really focused on making sure those kids are safe in those neighborhoods. I think they respect the elders in the neighborhood. I think they appreciate the fact that there's a lot of longevity in that neighborhood. I don't think there's any amount of bushes or landscaping or fencing that would ever make that look appropriate in that spot, on that block, on that street in Big Rapids. I worry about the alley for sure. I drive down the alley because Dr. Margaret's my dentist. And I'm stuck driving down that alley when I leave, and I think it's a crappy alley. I'm actually really happy when I get off the alley. I don't see how anything could be operational using that alley. I don't like that Dr. Margaret's going to have people walking across her lawn. I don't like that there's going to be noise, and there's going to be students that are going to look across the street in this place at a fraternity and go, let's party across the street from each other. It's like promoting disruption. I don't think it's, if there is a number, medium density, I don't feel like this fits in medium density. I feel like it's completely over the top of medium density. So those are my 2 cents. I'm not in favor. I'm not a fan. I think there's plenty of places you could build it that would be much more acceptable, for sure. But that location, that street, in that area makes absolutely no sense to me.
You know, when I look at the criteria for review, I think there are some, a couple of these that don't, this project doesn't fit in 9.63, the natural features, the landscaping shall retain as possible, as much as possible, or furnish various buffers between the project, adjoining properties, and dissimilar. And that,
I can't hear him. Microphone.
There you go. Thank you, Tim.
okay, 9.63. Basically that the project has to assist in preserving the general appearance of the neighborhood. That can't be done with this project, from what I read, and that's my opinion. Number 9.65, that the layout of the buildings and improvements will minimize any harmful or adverse effects to the development that might otherwise have upon the surrounding neighborhood. Again, I think it has a huge impact on the surrounding neighborhood. I think we've talked about several of them. The alley is a huge issue. The site plans, from what I can tell, there are a number of things lacking from it, and even if they were all done, the neighborhood is going to be forever changed in a negative way. When we spent 2 years on a master plan, we talk about housing goals on page 90. The objectives: develop a workforce housing cluster near employment hubs throughout the city, including areas, the east side, northeast neighborhoods, and near Ferris State University. And the key there is workforce housing. We spent 2 years on trying to look at those opportunities so folks can come and live and work in Big Rapids. When I read the statement from the applicant, it's obvious to me that it's student housing. And that's not the goals that I think we've been working on for 2 years. So I am not in favor of the project based on what I've read and the goals that we've set forward.
Chair, may I make a comment? Yeah. Brad Fowler, City Attorney. I want to caution the Planning Commission to be careful that a lot of the comments that I'm hearing are attacking the use and the project itself. This is a permitted by right use. So this individual owns this property. He is allowed to use it for multifamily dwellings in the zoning ordinance, and he can have a building up to the maximum height, which is 3 stories, 40 feet in the zoning ordinance. That's not for the Planning Commission to decide whether or not that's proper or not proper. You're looking strictly at the site plan itself, and is the site plan as presented compliant with these standards, the criteria that you mentioned, Commissioner Vogel. And so I just want to caution in your comments that you're not suggesting that the use isn't proper, because he can do that, and frankly, if he wanted, he could come in and ask to do a lot of other things with the property, including adult foster care homes, a private garage, a public utility building, a water tower. All those things are permitted by right on that property. So, I mean, if you were to deny this and he comes back and applies for a water tower, he has the right to put that there too. So I want to be very careful about that and how we're talking about it, because this is a permitted by right use. It's just a matter of the site plan itself, and does it comply with the standards in the zoning ordinance. So if the site plan needs to be fixed, it can be denied because it doesn't comply with those standards, and then it has to come back. But it can come back, and in one way or the other, he's going to be able to use it as a multifamily dwelling use for this property. So I just want to make sure that's clear in the analysis.
Thank you.
I'm just curious, how did it become R3?
I do not know the history of how it became R3. I know that it has been R3 since sometime in the 1960s. I don't know if it was rezoned to that originally. I don't know if when Big Rapids originally adopted zoning, they put it as R3. I didn't get back that far because 1960s is a significant amount of time.
I would be curious that, so you're sure the fire department's fine with the feasibility to work in that facility if they need to get in?
They didn't provide me any comment.
I'd like a comment, wouldn't you? One way or the other?
Well, and not only that, the engineering notes seem like they're not complete, like he didn't have everything he needed to go over them. Is that correct?
There are indications from our DPW, yes, that there were some things lacking in the site plan that he needs to review as far as the stormwater and I believe some of the sizes of the catch basin.
And we got a list of
And manholes.
8 conditions. So, I mean, with the list of 8 different conditions, plus we don't have all the information we need for this, is there like a 4th option to table, or would that just be a denial and you'd have to come back once these are met?
It would be a denial, the site plan is reformed, he can come back and submit a new site plan application if he needs to make some major changes to it.
Well, and Mr. Ward, as I said, I don't know that I have much control here since it's R3, but I still wanted to voice how I feel about that being put where you want to put it.
I've got some questions then. Are you planning, when you, it appears that the elevation of the property, are you gonna maintain that elevation? Is it gonna be higher than the property to the north? You're gonna maintain that elevation? That's a question for the applicant.
Can you ask the question again?
The property that you own appears to be higher than the property to the north. Are you going to maintain that difference in elevation with your new proposed proposal?
Relatively.
Let me help you. The reason I'm asking is I get concerned about the runoff to the north and how you control that and not affect, not affect those folks to the north.
That's a good question. So if you look at the topography of the stormwater management plan, all the stormwater on that facility is being controlled on site, going into a detention facility and then going into the Big Rapids storm system.
My concern is then what do you do with that portion that slopes down? You're still able to catch that?
I mean, we've worked with the City of Big Rapids Engineering Department, and based on what the requirements are for stormwater management, we're meeting those requirements. So, I mean, the entire parking lot is going into multiple catch basins, going into a detention facility, and then exiting through the City of Big Rapids stormwater management system.
It didn't appear that you had any diagrams of the detention facility according to the staff report.
I mean, that's correct. I mean, the City of Big Rapids only requires about 75% engineering drawings to be complete. They don't require 100% CDs. I mean, that would be almost infeasible to do, to come to a planning commission with 100%, for construction drawings to show that. But the intent is there, and DPW has provided their comments, which will absolutely comply with those.
The other concerns that were raised are that dumpster location. It seems tight. Have you had a chance, it just seems like a real tight turn on a 20-foot alley to try to get into that driveway at that location.
We've had discussions with a couple facilitators of that, and we're not exactly sure what that bin is going to consist of yet, so, but I'd be happy to work with you on that.
In fact, I think the access to the facility, if coming off of Michigan Avenue, seems to, would alleviate some of the neighbors' concerns, so that's something we might want to consider.
Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan Avenue is gonna be tough from that standpoint, but Cedar Street would be absolutely doable.
Do you have any other questions?
Maybe. The air conditioner, is it gonna be air conditioned?
It is.
And where's that going to be located?
There's a couple spots that are shown on the plans for the condenser units. A couple of them are on the roof. There's a portion that's carved out that's tucked in behind the pitched roof. And there's a little bit of a screen wall in that location. And then I think actually we got all of them to fit up on the roof.
Okay. And then on the alley side, all those balconies really do need.
There's no balconies.
There's no balconies?
No.
Okay.
It's just open walkway, right?
Yeah, it's the walkway, but yeah, not a balcony. That's if you're talking about the access into the individual units, and yeah, that's the access. There's 2 stairwells on the north and south side of the property that walk up to platforms that access each individual unit.
Oh, so it goes all the way across?
That's correct.
That's what it is? I see, okay.
Yeah, it's a covered walkway that goes all the way across.
The retaining walls, it seems only reasonable that there'd be a retaining wall on the alley and along the north side. And it looks like there is a partial on the north side. Am I looking at that right, correctly?
No, I don't think so.
Retaining wall?
I don't think there's any retaining walls because we're pretty much following the grade of the alley.
I'm sorry, on the north side of the building, between your property and the one to the north, is there some sort of a retaining wall there? Or
There's a
is
fence
there.
there.
A fence there?
Yeah, there's a fence there, yeah.
And what is, you've just listed as a fence, you haven't indicated any type of fence? Or is it a solid fence? What is the requirement there?
Has not been determined yet, yeah.
You know, it makes sense even on the alley side, to have some sort of retaining wall in the north side.
Fence or retaining? I mean, there's no need for a retaining wall because
A fence would be, would be fine. It would be solid, some sort of a solid fence.
Yeah, I think the zoning ordinance requires landscape buffer, but I'd be happy to do a fence in lieu of the landscape buffer.
When driving by there seems like those lots are definitely raised up. Would this be an ideal time with the city engineers to look at the end of that alley and decide whether that grade should go away at the end of the alley there? I mean, I've come down there a few times in the winter and not stopped for Cedar Street, but not because I didn't want to. You know, it's hard sitting up here because we all live in this neighborhood, not in your neighborhood, but in the neighborhood of Big Rapids. And we see changes coming along, and everybody's all in favor of changes back when we're putting this stuff together and creating zoning and master plans. And I don't know that everybody really realizes what the scope of that can lead to, because we're there right now. I mean, I feel for you. I have a historic house here in Big Rapids, and they're doing something kitty corner from me right now that I'm not real impressed with, but there's nothing I can do to stop it. There are little things that we can make them improve upon to where it actually fits it. But I'm having a very, very hard time with denying this project just because the neighborhood doesn't like it. I don't like a pot shop at the end of my street either, but it's still there. I would love to see that place brought down to sidewalk grade to where it doesn't water tower drive, big buildings on top of a hill. It looks like big buildings on top of the hill. And I don't have enough information in these drawings here to really indicate the elevations and how they may be grading things out. Is the grade going to sit down to Russ Street? And if so, how does that affect the alley and affect your driveway off the alley? I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard spot, just like with Christ Oil coming in. You know, did I want the project? No. But did they own it? And is it zoned for it? And that's what we have to weigh it on. I know that there's a lot that goes into these 100-year-old neighborhoods because I live in them. So I'm not sure how the rest of the board feels, except to say, yeah, our hearts go out to you, but there's nothing we can really do to stop the project. If we deny it, we'll be sued. That's the bottom line of it. Because they own the property and they have the right to do with the property what they want, as long as it is within that R3 district. I'm not the attorney here, and I don't write the zoning, and that's why attorneys write the zoning, because if you don't do it right, then somebody else owns your city. So,
Do you want to try to make a motion, or?
Well, whatever motion we make, we should be real detailed on what the conditions are going to be. And if I heard the attorney right, we can deny it until the conditions are made on the site plan.
You can, yeah, so I mean, you can approve the conditions, which I know there's some recommended. You can add additional ones if you wish. You can also deny if you think the site plan needs to be altered in a major way and have them come back with the altered site plan. But you want to be very specific in that decision as to what changes you need to be able to approve, so that they can make those changes. So those would be your options there. I wouldn't just, if you deny the site plan and don't give any guidance as to what the changes need to be, it's just going to be an ongoing, he'll be back next month with a different site plan, and it's going to be frustrating for everybody. So I would approve with conditions. Again, you can add additional conditions, or if you deny it, be very clear as to what the reasons for the denial are and why the site plan is deficient and needs to be changed or altered before they come back.
So I would, as far as making lists of conditions,
'Cause
We
have
have,
this
we have
list.
what, we have that list there, we have the conditions provided by the DPW on their stormwater review checklist dated 6/12/25, that all those conditions be met. I might add, looking at putting a drive on Michigan Avenue, that seems to take away a lot of the alley concerns.
I was looking at that, wondering if they were, well, then they probably get to the setback at the end at Cedar Street, and that required setback.
The driveway, there are requirements for setbacks for driveways. I don't know them off the top of my head, but there are requirements for setbacks for driveways.
I just wonder if the project shifted a little bit south, pushed it to more towards Cedar, if that would open up enough room on the north end to access the parking lot from Michigan Street. But I don't know, that, until it's drawn, we can't really look at it. Although that may help your concern with the alleys, it probably doesn't help the neighbor's concern with having a driveway going through there to the north of it, so. And you can't have a driveway within 7 feet of a corner.
I'm sure there's a standard,
There's a standard,
but I can't tell you what it is.
you know.
Even if the applicant would consider going from 3 to 2 stories. Now, I know he can do that, but it's a consideration that may blend into the neighborhood. I'm not sure how, that's probably outside the realm.
Correct. You can't require it to be 2 stories because it's allowed to be 3 in the zoning ordinance. In regards to the elevation, I was just talking with Michelle, it is, if it's raised, and I don't know the elevation of the property, you could, as part of the site plan, have the elevation be made so that it's consistent with the surrounding properties, if that's a consideration, but you can't limit the stories.
I like that idea.
Or even just the sheer amount of units, right? I mean, if you cut down some of the units on one side to fit a driveway.
It's all within the R3.
If you have to make adjustments, though.
That's true. That's true.
Is the elevation, what about the elevation? I wonder about the, again, on the north side.
Amazing. They have contours. Hold on.
Yeah, there's about 4 or 5 foot, it looks like. If I can-
It looks like existing elevations at the property line are about 980. And this property ranges from, so at the north property line, the elevation, existing elevation looks to be about 980. As you move south through this property, it ends at 980. It looks like it peaks 981. And road looks to be around 978. If that helps at all.
Well, I think it does, because it does give us the indication that could be graded down to sit down a little bit lower. But that would be something from your, I don't have a topographical map of this and the layout, which page
The grading plan is C300, and it shows, existing contour lines are like a really light color gray. I can pull it up there too. And then it also shows, it says like 981.71 CONC, which I'm assuming is concrete. That's the level.
I guess that could just be a question for you. Are you planning on bringing that grade down to sidewalk level, basically, or are you planning on?
We're following the topography of the alley. So if the parking lot in general is following the topography of the alley. So if you go towards the north end of the property, it's higher, and then it slopes down towards Cedar Street.
I was just wondering.
No. Yeah, so these light lines are your current contours. You can see them zigzag across. And then they have the elevations of the proposed.
I'm fine.
Okay.
So what do we have on the?
So the only other thing we didn't really discuss too that I was looking at was the sidewalk along Cedar. Would that just follow, as a condition, would that just follow to the alleyway, corner to the alleyway?
It would, to the extent it's property, I think that's
Yeah.
what you can.
So, because we have this list of, the lighting plan, bicycle parking, landscaping needs, the dumpster location being revised. This right here, we could change out for fence.
Endangered species, it's in those cedar trees.
The location of the drive to Michigan Avenue. Right?
And then,
Chair, can I ask a question? So on 9.62, when it talks about making sure that it has the elements of brick, is that something that's already going to be a condition?
Sarah, can you say what you said again? Because it was hard to hear.
Under the staff response on 9.62, where it says, in the second paragraph, under staff response, it says that staff feels that some of the architectural elements of brick, structural indents, and roof style will add to the residential feel. Is that a condition?
That is not a condition. They provided you some elevations with their submittal.
But this isn't a part of what they're planning.
So,
This is something you're suggesting we, right?
no, their submittal had some elevations, and I can pull those up so you can.
Well, I looked at those front pictures, so that's like actually what we're looking at, so it has the brick and stuff.
It has some brick, it has some
Okay.
indentation.
Yeah, and so if you were to approve this site plan with conditions, it would be
Yeah,
required to follow
Yeah.
that
okay,
architectural design.
yeah. At least that's a positive. They're trying to make it look homey.
Then would we need to put any of these in there as a condition, or?
All the conditions on the, I guess I would say, on the stormwater review checklist provided by Matt Ruel and Heather Bowman, Director of Public Works. Would that be specific enough?
You say that again, I didn't hear you.
The conditions that are outlined on this report from Public Works, instead of going through them specifically, would that be?
Yeah, you'd make the condition that they comply, you would approve, subject to them complying with all the conditions imposed by the staff report, the Public Works report, any other reports or conditions you want. But yeah, you don't have to specifically list them as long as they're in writing in those reports.
Okay.
Does someone want to make a motion? I don't know, am I allowed to make a motion?
I guess so.
All right, well.
We're adding checking feasibility of Michigan Street.
I would just say adding as a condition.
So I have to speak.
Sure, you can make all the apartments 2 feet shorter.
Right.
That's the recommendation, there's the approval. All right, so I'll move that the site plan review application for a multifamily residential structure at 624 and 630 South Michigan Ave be approved with conditions. The application meets the criteria for review set in 9.6 of the zoning ordinance, but conditions are required. The conditions on the stormwater review checklist from DPW, the conditions listed under the staff recommendation, and the additional conditions of a drive be added
Michigan, South Michigan.
along South Michigan, and the fence along the north side and the west side, along the alleyway.
Yeah, north and west side along the alleyway.
So along the north side of the property,
North side of the property and then west side
property,
of
which
the
is
property,
the
which is
alley.
along the alleyway. And I think that's,
Is the fence instead of the landscaping? Should we note that?
for what?
I
Oh, okay. We didn't have a condition on the grade, did we?
I'm not sure how we would word that, if it's even.
Or if it's even.
What are you trying to accomplish with the grade? And maybe I can help you, or Brad can help you with words.
Well, right now, when you drive by there, you look like you're about 7 feet above the sidewalk out on Michigan Street. And if they're going to follow the alley, which is 8 feet above Cedar Street, or 12 feet above Cedar Street, can that whole thing be graded down somewhat? where it doesn't look like we're putting a great big box on top of a big hill.
You could have one of the conditions be that the grading plan be revised so as to lower the grading to the greatest extent possible to make it consistent with the curb. And then that be subject to city staff approval prior to construction.
Ditto.
Yes.
And just so everybody else knows, none of us knows what's in that alley, how deep anything is in that alley. So that's a condition we could look into.
I just want to say something. I mean, as a condition to moving the driveway to Michigan, it's going to cause more density to the neighbors on the north. The building's now going to wrap in order to maintain the same number of units. So I just want the planning commission to be aware of that.
I'm not sure I understood what you said.
So in order to put the driveway in off of Michigan, the buildings on the south side is gonna have to become shorter. Right, so in order to maintain the density, now the building ends up wrapping and turning back towards the north, the neighboring north property. So now you're gonna have more density, because there's still setback room back there to build more building on that backside. So part of this design was to try to mitigate the amount of density on the north side of the property. Because right now, you only have the depth of the unit that's on that side. And now if you were to put the driveway on the south side going towards Michigan, the building's now gonna wrap and come back towards the alley.
Size.
I would just recommend if you are going to require a new drive to be put in, that would be he has to come back with a new site plan, because that is a significant change to the site plan. You'd probably want him to come back for approval for that. If that's gonna be a condition, maybe it's conditioned upon you coming back to the planning commission with a new driveway installed so you can review it, because there's probably gonna be a lot of other changes that are caused by adding a new driveway in that you're gonna wanna review, so.
And I would agree with that, but it's a lot of time and money to go back and do that. So what I don't want to do, and I'm just warning that, like, if we come back and the driveway is on the south side going to Michigan, and I'm still within the setbacks, it's just gonna create more density on that north side of the property.
We don't want to make it worse.
Yeah, we don't wanna make it worse.
I don't know the setback requirement from a driveway from a road. I don't, so I can't give you help on. Look real quick, see if I can find it.
And what would the planning commission think about coming off of Cedar Street?
It's either gotta be that or Michigan. I mean, it's gotta be one of the two. I don't think using the alley is an option. I don't think,
there's space.
I think it's gotta be separate. And I don't think the alleys are meant for that much traffic to go through them. So it would have to be one or the other, which if that's gonna change too much of the site plan, then we should look at that. But
Like coming straight in off Cedar would be
Might be okay.
a good alternative.
Yeah, I feel like that too. Mhm. Yeah.
so we can change.
So we can word it, somehow we'd like the applicant to review both options. I don't know that, I don't know about the, we're just talking about the site plan map. conceptual ideas, help me, Brad, a little bit, but, I understand, I'd like to know, I guess. I don't wanna make it worse. Cedar is okay, but, not the greatest, and it's certainly better than the alley.
I might
Like
give them
Cedar's
a
the
little
better
wider point also to put their dumpster enclosure right down there to where they can just hook in and come right back out.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me by looking at it that you could make a condition of the existing site plan that the drive be altered so that it comes in off of Cedar. If you were going to require a drive to come in off of Michigan, I think that changes the building location and everything. That's a major, that's, he's gonna have to come back with a new site plan for that. So that depends on what you want. If you wanna see a site plan that has a drive off Michigan, I think that's a motion to deny as presented and instructions to come back with a drive off Cedar. If you wanna approve it as is with the condition that the drive be changed from the alley to Cedar, I think you can do that now just as a condition.
I'd like to see that as a condition.
That'd be fine with me.
What, just Cedar as a condition, not Michigan?
I don't, if we're going to say Michigan, then we have to deny the whole thing and have them come back with it, which is then going to turn the building, wrapping around the corner.
I just feel like it's more obtrusive to have it off Michigan anyway. It'd be better, I just think it would be better off Cedar.
Yeah, there's really not much going off Cedar except Admiral.
Yeah. I don't really wanna consider it going off Michigan Avenue, And I don't like the alley, so it only gives me one choice.
Well, it's Cedar, I guess.
So it's, do you want me to start over since we had further discussion here?
Restate your motion, I think, is the,
Alright, I'll move that the site plan review application for multifamily residential structure at 624 and 630 South Michigan Avenue be approved with conditions. The application meets the criteria for review set in section 9.6 of the zoning ordinance, but conditions are required from, we're going to say they have to comply with the stormwater review checklist, the recommendations from staff that are listed, the location of a drive off Cedar, and the fence along the north side and the alleyway.
Are those fences in lieu of landscaping?
I think so.
Are we okay with that? I mean, I don't know, are fences better looking than?
I think fences are gonna stop the debris and the walking through.
That's true.
College
just to
kids.
help procedurally, why don't we just finish that motion and then you can
Okay.
have someone second it and then you can discuss. and you
My
can make
motion's
an
gonna be fencing,
Okay.
if someone wants to second.
I'll second that.
Now you can discuss, and if you wanna make a change, you can make a change.
Okay, yeah, I think the trash and the debris that floats from commercial properties into residential properties, the fence is gonna do better than the landscaping. The people crossing through, it's harder to jump a fence than to run between two trees, or to jump a shrub, I guess. It's not impossible, I just think it's harder.
6-foot fence, is that allowed? Is it, 6 foot is the,
We allow 6 foot once, we would allow 6 foot on the alley side.
okay?
And then we would allow 6 foot from the setback requirement or the front of the building back. But from the front of the building to the road, we only allow 4 foot.
I would add that to the motion, so it's specific.
6 foot, 6 foot fence and to meet require.
Yeah, whatever the requirements are for it.
So you amend the motion to, make a 6-foot fence or complying with, the city zoning ordinance.
Yes, I'll amend the motion to add the 6-foot fence and comply with the city zoning ordinance. Does that need seconded too, or no?
Yes.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Or, sorry, roll call.
Borowski,
Yes.
Reddick, Mayor Vogel,
Yes.
Montgomery.
Yeah, yes.
Alright, motion passes. So next we're gonna move on to general business. Which is a zoning ordinance update.
Yes, as you know, we have started the process of rewriting the zoning ordinance. You guys have a special meeting on Monday with the city, a joint meeting with the city commission to review the audit that was done by Williams and Works. We've also selected steering committee members to be a part of the zoning ordinance rewrite so that the planning commission doesn't have to sit through numerous meetings having discussions about that. It's, we have property owners on it, we have 2 plan commission members on it. We have a representative from the rental units on it, and then, so we have a mixture, and so there's 5 members on that steering committee. And then as chapters are reviewed in the zoning ordinance, we will be bringing them to the planning commission to review, so that you're not getting the entire ordinance at once to review. So the audit is just to give you a general idea of things that the steering committee will have to have discussions about and give the consultant and staff some direction or ideas from the planning commission and the city commission on how, how to move forward. That's all I have for a zoning ordinance update.
So on Monday, we're going over that,
The audit.
the audit that we're going over that whole thing together, but we're getting the specific stuff later.
Correct, yeah, the audit is just like the kickoff discussion of these are some of the issues they saw that we need to have discussions and make changes to. And then following that, the steering committee will start going through chapter by chapter, making recommended changes to be legal, but also making, changes of how the ordinance is structured and what allowances there are. And so once each chapter is done with the steering committee, it will come to the planning commission for review. And you'll have a chance to give your input on things you would like to see changed or adjusted so that we can take it back to the steering committee and the consultants to refine it some more. So there will be a lot of back and forth and some heavy reading coming up. So drink some coffee.
So are you're saying that you're gonna, you want the plan commission to think about what things they'd like to see changed in the zoning ordinance right away at the beginning? So would that be helpful or not?
I think that would be helpful.
I mean, we've all served a few years and have run across some things that would be, if we could maybe write those down or ship them off to you.
Yes.
And the meeting is this Monday at
6:30 in this room.
6:30. That's the plan commission and the city commission.
Correct.
And that's an open meeting also.
It's an open meeting, yes. It's the city commission treats it as like one of their workshops. So won't sit at the board. We'll probably make like a square table that everyone can sit at, and it lends better for discussion.
They're starting at 6, aren't they?
They're starting at 6:30 as well.
Okay.
I think it says 6:30, right?
I thought I had heard that they were meeting at 6 because they wanted to.
They were talking about doing
Okay.
that. they decided not to. They have another meeting the next Monday, another special meeting to discuss the proposals for infrastructure that aren't related to zoning.
Gotcha. All right. Any unscheduled business?
I don't have any unscheduled business, nope. The splash pad's going great. People love it.
I see a lot of them down there playing.
Yeah. Depot Park, I can give you some updates on projects, I guess. Depot Park is having a ribbon cutting soon. The project is almost done. We just got approval from the DNR for the sewer easement. So they'll be hooking that up soon, hopefully. The art piece is in there by Ivan Heather, and it's really cool. They have, Public Works has also made some railroad looking pieces of sidewalk that will be, I think they're staining them, I'm not 100% sure, but that give it some unique sidewalk leading up to the art piece, so that's really cool. It's paved, landscaping's still going in, but it looks great. Skate park is open and done. There's a ribbon cutting scheduled for that too. Airfest is not this weekend, but next weekend at the airport. The airport expansion project is done. Lots of great things happening. Chipotle mowed.
Way to go.
We got them to mow. I haven't heard from them. They're still doing their final engineering and design work. The theater closed on that property. We have a meeting with them Friday. Their architect is coming down to do some final design plans for that, and we have a meeting with them to go over that. So we're getting a theater in downtown. What else? Cottage Inn Pizza, I talked to them the other day. 3 to 4 months, they're hoping to be open. They're doing quite a bit of construction in there right now, so that's going well.
Credit union.
Demoed. I haven't seen any work on building. The family health care building that whole lot is completely under construction, so that will be a great addition to the community. More healthcare facilities available. What else? Any other development? Not that I can think of. I think that's it.
Okay. We'll adjourn the meeting at 8:33.
See you all on Monday at the joint meeting as well.
Thanks for the help, Brad. Appreciate it.
Not easy decisions, I get it.